So I did a talk where I was talking about how, first there's something, right? Then that something expands, right? And then over time, it evolves and then eventually collapses back in again, right? And um, basically, the thought just spurred in my mind about how that's um, pretty much like the life cycle of a star, right? And then it becomes a black hole. And I think that this is a good tie-in to the whole concept of death and what it really means, right? Because when it comes to talking about stars, we say that a star dies, right? And when the star dies, it becomes a black hole. Sometimes. I don't think that's a guarantee, right? But when stars die, they become black holes. And we see this as the death of the star. And to me, I have already done talks where I said, like, what is it like? Does changing one's appearance really mean that they die? Maybe in a sense, but in principle, the star is the star. Whether it's a star or it's a black hole, it didn't die and become something else. It's still the same thing, in theory. Right? I don't think that it's like actually dying with each change in its evolutionary cycle, right? And so it was kind of like that talk was kind of talking about like, well, what is really the meaning of death, right? And I'm really going to tie that back in again here, because the reality is that we say that like when a star dies, right, it becomes this black hole, this void of nothing, right? But there's also a theory out there, and I've talked about this as well, I believe, where a black hole is like a universe unto itself, right? So the universe that we are in is actually a black hole. That's like a theory that's out there. I find it very plausible. I find it very likely, because I see basically everything. All matter is basically a black hole at some scale, because I believe the nature of the world is very fractal, right? So everything is just as above, so below, right? And that's just a universal principle, right? And so basically, what I'm thinking about tying in this expansion out, right, and then this consolidation back and becoming the something, right? I feel like this life cycle of a star really just exemplifies it so well, right? What I'm trying to say, because the star forms, right, from nothing, right? There's nothing, and then the star forms into something, right? And then it evolves, right? And as it evolves, right, depending on what's around it, like other stuff evolves around it. Once the star forms, then other things can form, right, the star forms, then other planets and stuff can form. And then after other planets and things form, right, then things can then form on those planets, right? And the complexity builds and builds and builds, right? And then over time, right, this whole process, the whole time, what is the source of our life, right? What is providing the energy for us to exist in the first place? It's the sun. It's our star. If the sun was not here, neither would we be. And so I find this very interesting, very fascinating. But it's providing this basically life force for us to the energy and everything. And so we exist here and we're doing our thing, right? And so the complexity is evolving, and eventually, right, everything is going to be consumed back into the sun. And I don't know if our sun is actually big enough to become a black hole or not. I'm not sure if it is actually, but if it is, right, then it's going to turn into a red giant or whatever, and then it's going to do its thing for a while. Right? It's going to do all that stuff, but eventually, in theory, our sun will die. Die in quotations there, because I don't know if it'll be a true death or not, right? Because what happens? Well, if a star either will, go supernova, or if that's the right term, right? The star explodes, and if it doesn't become a black hole, then all of that mass, all of that energy gets shot out, right? And then what happens? Well, then that becomes a new star or new planets, right? It gets recycled and gets reused, right? So if in one cycle the star failed to form into a black hole, right, then potentially in the next cycle it'll form into a black hole, right? The next star that forms, right, that forms from the remnants of that star will then potentially become a black hole. And so what I'm trying to say is that maybe a black hole is not the death of a star, but the fulfillment of a star's, it's the completion of a star, right? The ideal goal of the star is to become a black hole, because when the star becomes a black hole, it then becomes, it goes through the process, right? It reintegrates with itself. It becomes the something, right? It's no longer the something in the nothing. It is both the nothing and the something, right? It becomes the black hole, right? So it exists in the nothing, but inside itself there is something, right? It has an entire universe within itself, right? In theory, right? So this is the creation of a universe within, right? Because I said, in that video, once you fully, finish the progression, right, it starts again, right? And so then this black hole forms, right? It creates a universe within itself, right? And then the whole evolutionary process repeats, right? It creates new life within itself. And this process repeats at smaller and smaller scales throughout time, right? And over time, this black hole that forms, right, will eventually coalesce with another black hole, right? And it's just like the same thing that's going down in smaller and smaller scales is happening at bigger and bigger scales as well, right? So this whole process is all over the place. But it's all running on the same principles. And so, why would we be different? I guess is what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, it's just really interesting to kind of see the parallels there. And I know that I also did a talk where I kind of made black holes sound like the bad guys, but I don't know if that was necessarily my intention, right? Because, the formation of black holes is just a necessity of life, is what I was trying to say. You need, something needs to fulfill that role, right? In order for, everything needs to, start consolidating, right? Because when things start to consolidate, it really escalates, I guess, the evolutionary process, right? And so without anything basically applying stress, forcing this to happen, nothing happens, right? Without the stress there, without something inciting this behavior, then there's no need to do it, right? And so this is just a natural part of life, right? And so, I mean, I don't know. It's, in one sense, it is a death, right? Because it's the end of one thing, but it's the start of something else, right? It's potentially something better, something greater. However, what it is not totally clear, because I mean, we're not there yet. I'm not there yet, right? I don't know. And we don't know what's inside a black hole, right? We don't know what's inside a black hole. But I think the fact that we don't know what's inside a black hole is in itself, a good indicator that whatever is in there is both a part of this universe and not, right? It's real and not real at the same time. Just like the thoughts in our minds are real and not real at the same time. There's no location where it's not like my thoughts are just kind of like floating above my head right now. Like, they exist and they are real, but they are only real to me because I'm the only one that is observing them, right? I'm the only one that can see my thoughts, right? I see in quotations there, right? Right? I'm the only one that's aware of what my thoughts are. In theory. And so if I'm the only one that can be aware of my thoughts, then are my thoughts actually here? And, I guess you could argue that, no, they're not, but on some level they are because I am here, right? And, they're my thoughts, right? So they must be real on some level because I'm real on some level. And, in theory, we're all real on some level. And so what I think I was trying to say with this is that we don't know what's inside a black hole, right? And so in one sense, it's not real, right? Because whatever is within it is irrelevant to us, right? However, that doesn't mean that it's not real on some level. Theoretically, there's an entire universe inside every black hole. However, it has zero impact on us because it is a universe within it, within itself, right? And just like my thoughts do not have an effect on all the people around me unless I make them known, this inside universe has no effect on the outside universe. Potentially. Arguably, potentially not. I don't know, right? I don't understand the entire mechanics of the universe, right? But I just wanted to kind of point out, the main thing I wanted to point out was that I really think that stars embody this kind of reconsolidation and creation of, or repeating of the cycle, recreation, right? And rather than this being the death and this thing to kind of fear, it is actually the thing to look forward to, right? And even if in this, this death, at the end of this cycle, you don't fulfill your goal, right, of becoming, whole, I guess is maybe the term I'm looking for. If you don't become whole in this cycle, then you just go into the next one, right? And you keep you keep remnants of what you built and what you made in this cycle, and you use that to help your growth in the next cycle. And over time, eventually, you reach that point where you become a black hole. Sometimes it takes longer than others. Sometimes, it's one cycle and they're there, right? And that's just how it is. So, everyone is on their own timeline, right? And, sometimes those timelines are really long. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of put that out there and say that. So peace out.